Hey everyone, my friend Greg Mead surprised me with a 3D file of my logo when he found out I'd received a new 3D printer. Watch along as he shows us how he did this, and then I'll print that file.
Okay, so today I'm going to do just a quick run through of how to do a really simple embossed 3D model, in this case of my friend Chad's Mancrafting channel logo from his YouTube channel. A great channel if you haven't checked it out. So, I'm going to kind of skip some of the fundamentals of getting a good clean graphic, but for doing an embossed, just sort of a 3D model, a couple of things you will need, right? You will need a good, simple, clean copy of the drawing, and more importantly, it needs to be in a vector format. And by that I mean, if you don't know what a vector format is, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that, but if you think of it as sort of your normal JPEG or your normal PNG, your normal graphic, those are bitmap. They're made up of just a series of dots, in this case black or white dots, that arranged in a grid make the picture. Vector graphic is a special kind of, it's a very scalable. I can make it as big as I want, and it doesn't fall apart, the details in there. And it does that because everything is defined as a series of lines and curves. It's actually sort of a mathematical description of, I grab any point and move it and change how the curves go and that sort of thing, right? If you don't already have a vector copy of your image you're wanting to emboss, there are a lot of tools out there. There are websites that can do conversions for you. There are, I'm using Adobe Illustrator. It has a great auto trace. There's Inkscape. There's some others out there that are free if you don't have access to the Adobe tools. But I don't want to get off in the weeds on that. But just do know you'll need to start with a good sort of clean vector graphic drawing. And in this case, I'm not just embossing the logo into some other model I already have. I just want to make sort of a freestanding medallion to be printed. So in this case, I've already, before starting recording this, right, I did go in and I created an additional layer with an outline on it that will be sort of the outer perimeter of what we're gonna model, and I'll show you that in a bit as well. And for doing the modeling, I'm going to use Fusion 360, in my case on a Mac. It's available for Mac and PC. They have a free hobbyist license if you're doing it non-commercially. Highly recommended. As a very, very capable CAD package, capable of doing everything from sort of engineering design to really simple stuff like we're going to do today. So jumping right into it, we'll need to get these graphics in a form that Fusion can understand. And we'll also need two separate files. I'll want one with just the perimeter and one with sort of everything else in it. And it'll become apparent why when we do the model. So to do that, Fusion doesn't natively read Adobe Illustrator files. Fortunately, there is a format called SVG for scalable vector graphic. It's becoming more common that most vector packages can save off in. That would let you, is a format that Fusion can import and use in models. So one little thing I'm going to do here that's a little bit odd is if I import this, if I save it out just as it is, and I import it into Fusion, Fusion sort of considers this top left corner, or the SVG considers this top left corner as sort of the 0, 0, XY coordinates of this drawing. So when I import it, the actual piece I'm interested in will be kind of way down off to the right, offset from this corner, just so I don't have to hassle with that in Fusion. It's much easier. I'm going to make sure both layers are selected here and are not locked. And I'm going to grab it, and I'm just going to kind of center it on this corner. It doesn't need to be exact in most cases unless you're trying to align it very carefully with something. That'll just make my life a little bit easier. I'm going to save two copies of this. Like I said, I want one with sort of the whole logo, and the outline with it's fine. I don't care either way there. So I'm going to do Save As. And let's just call this Mancrafting channel. And I'm going to go down here and change it off of Adobe Illustrator or AI to SVG. I'm going to save it. I'm going to accept the defaults here. Really not that important. One thing I would mention, by the way, if you do have actual fonts in here, One thing I've done is I've gone through and selected the type and gone into type and create outlines. So it's no longer a font, it's the outline of the letters. Again, if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. Just select any sort of type and it can't hurt to automatically do it. Just go in and go type. If there's any fonts in there, create outlines will be available. So do that before you save it. Save it out. That way you don't have to worry about if fonts read correctly in Fusion or whatever, right? And then one other thing I'll need to do is I'm going to lock the back layer, the outline layer, and I'm going to select all the rest of it and I'm going to delete it. Now I would say just hide it, but if you hide it and save it as an SVG, it's actually still in the file. And when you import it, it'll all still be in there. So the easiest way is just delete it. Don't worry, you're not going to mess up your original file, assuming you've saved it first, because we're immediately going to save as. And we're going to save it as Minecraft channel, dash outline. Again, accept the defaults here, and we have our outline image. And then we're really done in Illustrator for what we're needing to do here. I'm going to switch over to Fusion. Okay, so now we're over in Fusion 360. We're just going to start with a new blank document. If you're not familiar with Fusion 360, pretty much unless you already have something else open, you have a blank document here. Even if I close the default one that's here, it just creates a new one for me. So there's always a document in this window. We're going to start by creating a sketch. Now, I could just import the SVG and it would create a sketch for me just sort of automatically. But just so it's obvious what's going on, I'm going to create it manually. And I'm going to pick which plane I want it to go in. In this case, we have 3 default construction planes, the horizontal and the 2 vertical planes. I'm going to pick the horizontal one because that's the way I want it to print. I want it to print flat on my 3D printer bed. And I could model it just as easily on either of the other 2. But then when you imported it in your 3D printing software, it would be standing up on edge. You'd have to spend extra steps. So we're just going to model it on the flat XY plane. Now that we've got the sketch started, I'm going to say Insert, SVG. We're going to select the SVG we created. In this case, I'm going to import the outline first because we want to create sort of the blank that we're going to emboss on first. So I'm going to import that. I'm going to hit OK, and I've got my plane here, or my sketch here with my imported SVG. I'm going to stop the sketch. And then I'm going to hover over that. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go up and to the right and select Press Pull, which some of you may know as Extrude from other packages. But basically it lets us just grab this and extrude that 2D shape out into a 3D form or body. In this case, I don't want it that thick. I'm going to say maybe 8 millimeters, which is a little over 1/4 inch thick. Maybe a little thinner than that if I wanted to, but we'll go with this for now. And then I'm going to select this face, and just this is where I want to put my embossing. So I'm going to go back to Sketch. I'm going to create a sketch, and it's going to create a new sketch on the face of that. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to insert an SVG again. And this time I'm going to pick the logo that has not just the outline, but the one that has all of the rest of the stuff. I'll be honest, I have no idea why Fusion does this, but it does have a habit of bringing in random things. Like in this case, it was from the same file, and it brought it in upside down this time. No idea if anybody knows. I would love to hear it. I'm just going to grab that little curved arc at the top, and I'm going to rotate it around 360 degrees. And I'm going to zoom in. In this case, I'm doing it on my touchpad. You do it with the scroll bar if you have a mouse. And just make sure that our sketch aligns, that it's not slightly, it's misaligned like this, right? I want to make sure this is dead aligned with the blank that we have, and it should be. Typically, if you did them like we created the file with them sort of interlocked, you should be able to get in there and see that it is very, very closely aligned. When you're happy with the alignment, go ahead and hit OK. And it's going to take a moment to import this, a little bit complex, and my machine's running a little bit slow. And I'm going to stop sketch again. and it will take me back into the 3D view, and I can see that if I wanted to by rotating it this way. So I'm going to right click again just out in the open space and say press pull, because I want to do another extrusion. But in this case, I want to do multiple faces. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, and by faces I mean, you know, over, like if I'm over an edge here and it highlights this, that's an edge. I don't want an edge, we want to emboss faces. So I'm going to select that face, and I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to select that star, and I'm going to select all the little individual bits of this logo. One at a time, and I'm going to select that bit and that one. I'm going to come back and deal with these separately, and I'll show you why in a moment. I'm going to select the body of the welder here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so I can grab these little detail bits. If you're zoomed out, it tends to try and want to grab the edges a little more than actually the individual faces. And that, and that, and that. Alright, now if I zoom out, you'll see I have most everything selected on this. And now, you know, I can do a couple of things here. I could grab the little arrow that's usually showing up and start dragging. In this case, I want to extrude, let's say, I don't know, we're 8 millimeters thick. Let's say, why don't we go 3 millimeters deep? So we're going to go, but we want to go into the surface, so I'm going to go -3. And Fusion's smart enough to know that because I'm extruding this down from a surface, that what I probably want to do is cut. Instead of creating a new body like it defaulted to, which is what it did last time, I probably want to cut, and it turns red here to show me it's going to cut that out, and that is exactly what I want to do. I want to push that down in and cut that into the existing body. So I'm going to hit OK. Again, it's going to take a moment to do the math and work out the model, but you'll see I now have that stuff cut into the surface. Now, it does turn off the outlines of the sketch you were using here. So if I go in and expand my sketches and click the little light bulb beside that sketch, so we have our sketch back. Let me rotate this a little bit so that I can see it a little better without the reflection. These are the two little bits I said I would come back and deal with. Because they are, you know, in real life, they would be sort of not as deep as this stuff, but deeper than this. I'm going to select those separately, and I'm going to go press pull by right-clicking here, and I'm going to tell it I want these to be, let's say, -1.5 millimeters, and again it defaults to cut, and that's great. And now those are slightly less deep than this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this face. I want to actually bring it out a little bit. So I'm going to select it, and do be careful if you've got like enclosed areas in the middle of the letters here. Select those as well. And let me zoom out a little bit here. And I'm going to right click, press pull, and let's bring this up from the surface, maybe a millimeter. Just so it's actually above, raised above the level of the face of the rest of it. Alright, and there you have it. Basic model, and we can turn the sketches off so we can kind of better see the overall model. Let me zoom out a little bit. And, you know, I might go back and mess with the depths on this for the final model, but this gives me more or less what I need. You can see as we rotate this that it has sort of all the detail. The banner is extruded out further in the front. And I could go in if I wanted to and select the letter outlines and extrude them deeper. But we're going to go with this for now. And that'll do it for me. And then to get this out as a model, you know, a lot of people go over here and they go make, and they take it through like 3D print, and they have to select a model that takes you into another piece of software. If you want to export the whole model you did, honestly, you can just go up to the top level object here. And if I right click on that, I can go save as STL. And I could tell it how much refinement, how much detail I want. Or if you selected high, right, it's going to make a whole bunch more triangle here. It'll be a little bit smoother print. Honestly, though, for most things, with this we have a lot of detail. Maybe I'll leave it like that. If you don't, though, certainly you can produce a smaller file and potentially a little quicker print by leaving it at a slightly lower detail level. I'll hit OK, and we'll give it a name. We'll just call it Man Crafting Channel. It's going to be a .stl file, which is what you would need to import into your 3D printing software. And there you have it. That's the way that's created. And I'm going to turn it over to Chad to print out on his new printer.
Thanks a lot, Greg. I appreciate it. And here we go. Watch along. Okay, Greg has sent me the file, and I'm going to pull that up in my files. And here it is. And you can look at it like this. You can come down here and grab it, and you can flip it around to see if it's what you want. There's a couple other views. You can look at a 2D view. Okay, I see what happened. All right, so you got the 3D view, 2D view, and you can go up each layer. There's a preview this way, and it shows you, and then you got layers, and you can go up in layers by scrolling this, and it'll show you each additional layer and how it's going to look, which is kind of cool. And that's the final layer. And you'll notice there's some like gaps and some artifacts in here, and that's actually part of how the logo was designed. It has kind of a graffiti look to it, a little rough look. So anyway, just kind of a couple of features there. You want to make sure that you've checked all your settings. I don't know a whole lot about doing this, so I had to go with what were recommended. And 60, 80, 130 millimeters a second for the speed. You've got 20% fill density. We used honeycomb, and the top and bottom fill pattern was rectilinear. Layer height was it says 0.2. I might have printed it at 0.1. Filament settings, put in your diameter, 1.75 of the actual filament, and I think I'm using PETL. The extruder needed to be 215 degrees Celsius when I start, and for other layers it goes to 200. And then check your printer settings. You got your bed size here, the type of G-code that you're using, and the PRUSA uses RepRap. That's what Joseph PRUSA is famous for. Nozzle diameter 0.4, and retraction length 2. And once you have all that stuff and you know it's correct, now you can export the G-code. So make sure you don't want it to be like that. You want to make sure your file is selected, and then you export the G-code, go with Man Crafting logo, hit save. And I already had saved it once before, so hit replace. And this program, Slic3r, that comes with the PRUSA, it's actually pretty quick. This will finish loading pretty rapidly. But that's pretty much it. I just want to say thanks again, Greg, for being so generous with your time. I know it took some time to make this, and he was nice enough to also show everyone else how he made it, which I think will be helpful for a lot of people watching. And just stay tuned. I'm about to print this out.